Hello, everybody. Greetings from New York City, from Columbia University. My name is Dr. Leon Perlman, head of the Digital Financial Services Observatory at Columbia Business School, part of Columbia Institute for Tele-Information. And I want to welcome you to our webinar, State of the Global Blockchain Ecosystem. So thank you to those who sent in emails before the webinar asking me to cover a number of topics. So as a result, I'm going to be giving you a brief primer or primer, wherever you are, however you pronounce it, on blockchain technology. So those who are experts or semi-experts, you'll probably just get a slight refresher on the technology, but overall we're going to cover a lot of topics today. But again, we're going to spend some time on explaining blockchain and distributed ledger technologies. So housekeeping notes, please keep your microphone and video off, please. Don't ask any questions via audio, as this interrupts the flow of the presentation. And if you could start sending, as you wish, questions in the chat box to the host moderator, Jason, that'd be most appreciated. So we'll key up all the questions. So the presentation will last about 50 minutes, and then we'll have 10 minutes of Q&A. So the agenda, 50 minutes, 10 minutes, and today's topics, again, the background, the primer, talk about the crypto economy, legal and regulatory issues, use cases, and security of blockchain and distributed ledger technology. And then we'll have our Q&A. So just that picture on the left is where we are. It's a beautiful summer's day here in New York City. And we're kind of in the middle of that picture where the green is, just about there, at Columbia Business School. And this is the team who's helping with the webinar today. And I'm the chap on the top right, Leon Perlman, head of the DFSO. Just about the DFSO, it's funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We started operations at the beginning of 2016. You can go to our website, dfsobservatory.com. There's an extensive database of legal and regulatory issues, news, and a whole lot of papers that I encourage you to read through, which we've spent a lot of time and hard work putting together for you. So dfsobservatory.com, you can go to publications and you'll see all our work. Also, recordings of our previous conferences, roundtables, and some webinars for you. We do a whole lot of stuff, let's call it that, activities on the slide. So close collaboration with industry, regulators, academics, standard-setting bodies around the world. Very active group we are. These are webinars that we've had, and again, you can look at the recordings online as you wish. And some of them, there are quizzes, so you can test yourself to see how much you've absorbed from the webinars. So let's get to the topic. So let's just start again. We're going to have a little bit of a background and primer on request. Spend a little bit of time on that. We'll talk about where this all began, sort of, because we don't actually really know. So, and this is really stylized because some of it began long before 2008, but as it is, people think that this blockchain ecosystem began in around 2008 or thereabouts with a publication of this paper by somebody called Satoshi Nakamoto, and the paper Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. So now, quite frankly, nobody knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is. If it's a male, female, where they are, if that's their real name, that person has effectively published the paper and then disappeared off the face of the earth. So lots of people have claimed to be Satoshi Nakamoto. Some people have been identified ostensibly as Satoshi Nakamoto, but quite frankly, nobody knows who this mystery person is that kickstarted this ecosystem, this blockchain ecosystem, this cryptocurrency ecosystem in its current form, and why we're here today. So that is what Mr. Nakamoto created. Not this logo per se that was created afterwards, but this Bitcoin cryptocurrency. So in that 2008 paper, Nakamoto referred to blocks and chains, and contrary to urban legend, there was no mention of the word blockchain in the paper, but blocks and chains and thereabouts, and then people later concatenated the two words into blockchain. But he or she referred to Bitcoin kind of what we call now cryptocurrency, because it's crypto as in it's cryptographically secured, and also introduced the concepts of something called decentralized and distributed. Now, that's 2008. We've come a long way, as we'll see a bit later, and as more of these cryptographically secured blocks and chains emerged, we've started to call them distributed ledger technology. So we'll differentiate quite soon between blockchain and distributed ledger technology. They're much the same, but we need to differentiate them. So this is a sort of a Russian doll type of hierarchy that I've created just to explain it. So what we've got is the family distributed ledger technologies, of which blockchain, the protocol blockchain, is one of them. So again, the hierarchy is right at the top, distributed ledger technologies, then blockchain, and then at the bottom is that Bitcoin logo I showed you earlier, and that's a kind of an application. So Bitcoin and blockchain, not the same thing. Blockchain is a type of distributed ledger technology, and as we'll see a bit later, the regulators' initial reaction to this anonymized cryptocurrency was to conflate it with blockchain, and incorrectly, as it turned out. So blockchain, distributed ledger technologies, as you want to call it, are seen as a technology leap of our era, and has attracted literally billions upon billions of dollars in funding, not just from venture capitalists, but also from governments who want to use the technology and even the concept of a cryptocurrency for their own national use. So lots of money these days, not so much anymore, but these days, if you use the word blockchain in front of a venture capitalist, your wallet just got filled. It's cooled down a little bit. We're kind of in what's called a crypto winter. Maybe we're coming out of it. Maybe it's a crypto spring. But there is money being thrown at the ecosystem, but not as much as it was, say, two years ago. So going back to the concept introduced by Nakamoto, this is what we've got now, and this was the big leap. So what we've got now is we've got data which is centralized. So imagine any database with information, it's all centralized. So single point of failure, so to speak. That centralized database goes down, everything crashes, and we've all experienced that with system down environments. So what we have now is we spread the risk. We have this distributed ledger type of environment on the right, distributed ledger technology, blockchain as a type of distributed ledger technology, where all those little points are called nodes. So all the information is on nodes. So spread the risk, spread the processing, and also introduces a new type of verification mechanism, which we'll talk about in a second, called consensus. So all those nodes have to verify the information before it is put on, finally, on a block. Okay, so just now we've got some basic concepts. Let's just unpack the paper. If you want to go read the paper for historical purposes, again, we've moved on quite a bit since 2008. It's at bitcoin.org. So again, blockchain, block plus chain equals a technology. Bitcoin equals a cryptocurrency, a kind of application thereof. So the nodes hold the data. It's secure using cryptographic keys, needs consensus. But importantly, its application is just used for more than cryptocurrencies. We're now lots and lots and lots of applications, and I've got a slide on that. And now we call a lot of them crypto assets. And all the transactions are stored in a block. Now, at the beginning, this whole thing used to be called immutable, meaning that you can't go back, you can only go forward. So the chain is linear, goes forwards, and boom, if it's nobody can tamper with it and reverse it. We know that immutable paradigm has been disproven back in 2017 with an attack on what's called the DAO. And in fact, at that point, the US NIST, the National Institute for Science and Technology, removed the word immutable from its definition of blockchain. So cryptocurrencies is the Bitcoin used for payment. Actually, not so much because of its volatility. The others which are, we'll talk about that later, called stablecoins. But importantly, is decentralized. There's no central issuer, maybe. We'll see that there are some variations of that theme. We have what's called miners who mine the Bitcoins, maximum 21 Bitcoins, but as we'll see, lots of other what's called altcoins, so alternative coins to Bitcoin, so hence the term altcoin. So yeah, here's our Russian dollar again. Distributed ledger technology is at the top, and then there's Ripple, and there's DAG, and blockchain, and Bitcoin applications, as well as these crypto assets. So we can see we're building our ecosystem slowly but surely since it was all kickstarted in 2008. It's getting a little bit more complex, and the terminology is evolving. Every week or so, there's a new term which goes into the blockchain stroke DLT lexicon. So uses, there's lots, and I'm not going to go over any of them in specific detail. Proof of ownership, prediction platforms, proof of ownership, digitizing access, remittances, company information, digital identity is a big one, especially in the developing world, Internet of Things, and trade finance, and even anti-money laundering and KYC uses. So tons and tons of uses. You can Google it very easily. It's no use me spending time on every single use case when there's literally many thousands. People are very creative in using this technology. So going back to the core concepts, again on the primer component, these nodes process the data. The data is stored in the sequential blocks. And again, this is for blockchain. It's not necessarily the case for all DLTs. There's the DAG DLT, which uses a different paradigm. Again, you need your cryptographic keys. It's tamper evident. So it's no longer immutable, but what it is evident when somebody tries to tamper with the data. So if you try to hack a blockchain, all these nodes are going to know about it, and they can basically veto the changes. That's not always the case. There are abilities in some cases, theoretical otherwise, to basically manipulate the data on a blockchain. And there are some security vulnerabilities, which we'll look at a bit later. So tamper evident versus immutable. And you need consensus to add the data. So there's no centralized entity processing and controlling the data, maybe, although practically speaking, in a lot of cases, there might be a centralized entity depending on the type of DLT. So you get permissioned or permissionless. Those are corporate type of DLT blockchains where a company, controls who sees the data, who can change the data. And these blockchains may be public or private. So public and permissionless prime example of that, of course, is Bitcoin. It's public and permissionless. Anybody can participate, anybody can see the data. So how it all works, again, data is sent on the blocks. The new data inputs from participant nodes are the result of what's called mining, and there are rewards to the miners, who could be anybody. You can be a miner on a public blockchain. You can earn money in the Ethereum blockchain. That's called gas fees. As more data is added, again in this linear fashion for some blockchains, the chain grows and it's tamper evident. So importantly, it's secured via these cryptographic keys, also known as public key infrastructure. The nodes must sign to confirm additions to the blocks for consensus. This confirms the identity of the parties and also, importantly, encrypts the data on the blockchain. So mostly very difficult to break the encryption, although looking into the near distant future, quantum computing is said to break some of the keys. We'll see how that happens. It's not quantum computing. You can Google that. Is not mainstream yet. There are some quantum computers out there, but it's not mainstream. You can't go to Amazon and buy it on. They cost upwards of $10 million each. Okay, so this important bit about consensus. So if a participant wants to add a newly mined data in a new block, the majority of nodes need to add pairs addition. If no consensus means no addition of the proposed block. If might create what's called a fork, temporary fork, soft fork, hard fork, but a temporary fork if it goes skew. So somebody tries to manipulate the chain, you create these forks. So how this all fits together, and this is extremely stylized and simplistic, so don't see this as the totality of every single blockchain or DLT in the world. We'll start on the left, top left. Somebody wants to add data to the blockchain. There's a request to add block, and this data is broadcast to all nodes. Nodes check the new data. They then by signing with their digital keys, and then that's it. That's broadcast, and new data is added to the block and completed, and the blockchain awaits new block requests. So don't shoot me down. This is very stylized and very again stylized and not representative of the way every blockchain works. But for the primary purposes, this will do. Okay, so as I said, we've gone a long way since 2008, where Bitcoin was the first blockchain, and there are now thousands of these altcoins, lots of little Bitcoin forks in itself. So lots of Bitcoin varieties, improvements, or disputes have caused this. But Bitcoin Core is said to be the main representation of the original Nakamoto protocol. So many hundreds of blockchain types, all speaking to a specific use case. Ethereum, though, is the main one. It's a public blockchain and said to be a kind of a global computer. There are also zero-knowledge proofs. These are methods to hide private data on public blockchains. There's also something called smart contracts, which are automated executions of terms, and we'll look at that a little bit later. So again, some other types of DLTs, blockchains. There's directed cyclic graph. There's Corda from R3. There's Ripple. And again, stylized, a lot of these blockchain types are known as layer 1 because they're insufficient for mainstream use, speed, etc., and scalability. Some are also known as blockchain 2. Some people call Ethereum blockchain 2. Some people don't. So these potential technical improvements to address blockchain scaling, in other words, how many transactions you can have simultaneously, the speed of the processing. It takes quite a while to add a block to a Bitcoin blockchain currently. So want to improve that for mainstream use so that it's near instant. So in that sense, some technical improvements like sharding and the Lightning Network have been proposed, and these are, and in use in some cases, these are known as layer 2. So they actually sit on top of layer 1. So you can imagine, again, using Bitcoin as our prototype. The Bitcoin blockchain would be layer 1, and because it's slow, they've done this thing called Lightning. So it's lightning fast, and the processing speeds are pretty fast in Lightning because it's said to be off-chain. it's less secure. So it's not on the main Bitcoin blockchain network. It's off-chain. It needs to have its own sort of processing, settlement, and then reports to the layer 1 blockchain, and then that gets added. And because there's this disconnect between layer 1 and layer 2, for now, it's said to be insecure. Similar with sharding. Sharding is a database improvement term, so ported from the non-DLT world, where essentially the database, to speed up processing, is broken into shards, just like breaking glass. And that's also insecure because somebody can maybe take over one shard and compromise that particular layer 2. So it's said to be less secure, not totally insecure, but less secure. Okay, so just like the technology is evolved, as I said, there are lots and lots of terms. There's evolution of the use case terminology. So we've gone from Bitcoins to altcoins, now to tokens, and also crypto assets, which we'll look at. Okay, so just to snapshot this, again, stylized, there's the technology 2008 Bitcoin blockchain, then you get the blockchain variants, like Ethereum, and then you get the distributed ledger technologies. So at the application layer, don't forget our Russian doll, which I showed you where everything sits. Bitcoin is an application. Then you got all these other altcoins, Litecoin, etc., Ethereum, and then now what we've got are these crypto assets like utility tokens, security tokens, payment tokens, initial coin offerings, and initial exchange offerings. So lots of variations. Every other week there's something. So there you have your Russian doll again. There's your hierarchy, and next to the Bitcoin, you got these crypto assets. So it's not just Bitcoin and Bitcoin as a payment anymore. It's also all these other issues types. So more technology evolving. These tokens, they're representative of a crypto asset built on an existing blockchain. That could be fractional value, and really that catalyzes what's called distributed finance or decentralized finance. So these crypto assets are said to be tokenized, payment, utility, security, ICO, and IEOs, and these to a large extent are traded on crypto exchanges. There could be exchanges between fiat and these tokens, or token to token, where there's no fiat being the national currency, or direct peer-to-peer trading. I think that was Nakamoto's original vision. It hasn't really worked out to a mainstream use just yet, evolving using atomic swaps. So on the right, you'll see a type of decentralized finance scheme with royalty payments. On the left is, and this is factoring of royalty payments. So let's just say there's an actor or a music artist, and they only get their royalties in 6 months. So instead of waiting for 6 months to get a big fat check, what they do is they factor their prospective royalty payments and they tokenize it. So they tokenize the eventual outpayment, and everybody can buy into the prospective royalty payment. The artist gets their money up front from the sale of the tokens, and then those tokens can be sold to anybody at the top. Similarly, if you in a country and you don't have access to, say, buying Amazon shares, you can buy a token that places bets on the rise and fall of a share. So you get access to share trading indirectly, but this is a kind of a democratization of finance. Everybody around the world can buy in fractionally, and that's the important bit, fractionally into a token. So many thousands of tokens can be created to represent a particular token and traded. Okay, so these type of crypto assets, we've got our cryptocurrencies. These payment tokens, Bitcoin, Ethereum, protocol tokens, again, what I spoke about, gas, these are payment to miners, for example. Equity asset tokens, used for asset sales, entitles holders to ownership rights through initial coin offerings, and security tokens based on real-world assets. Initial coin offerings, we'll see later, have been very controversial because they're based on a white paper promise, versus security tokens, which is a new incarnation, are based on a real-world asset, and regulators have come down very hard around the world. They also utility tokens, almost act as usage coupons, so you buy the rights to use something. They do not provide the holders with ownership stake in a country's platform. For example, you could use a utility token to buy ads on a platform, or in an autonomous car kind of environment. Imagine you two people are on a highway, or a few people on a highway, and the autonomous cars, and you're in a rush, so you're behind cars which are slowing the whole highway down. So through what's called a smart contract or automated execution of and trading of tokens, and if then kind of that paradigm, your car negotiates with the car in front through a utility token, saying, I'll give you $1 if you move out the way because I'm in a rush. Then the car in front says, no, I want $1.25, and then you settle on $1.10, and that's kind of a utility token, aspirationally. That could happen using the kind of technology that we're developing, and the fact that autonomous cars are in existence. So all these form the basis of what, again, here's a new term to use, the crypto economy. So again, a stylized view. This is the crypto economy in my view. You've got laws and regulations covering this bubble, and on the left-hand side of the frame, you've got utility tokens, security tokens, cryptocurrencies, ICOs, IEOs as crypto assets. You've got your users, banks, individuals, institutions. You've got the technology, DLTs, distributed apps as we know them, tokens, wallets, smart contracts, and these are the actors, miners, custodians, exchanges, escrow, institutions, developers, etc. So again, this crypto economy started back in the Bitcoin day of 2008, and I've taken a snapshot of June 2010. So one Bitcoin at the time was 6 US cents. So well done to you if you bought them. You might also have got a letter from the US IRS. If you're in the US, they've started sending out this letter this week saying, we noticed that you bought Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency in 2010 when it was 6 cents, and today it's now, and I checked this morning, $10,030 from a high of $20,000 in December 2017. So if you'd spent $60 US in June 2010 to buy 1,000 Bitcoins, your little stash of 1,000 would be worth $10.3 million US right now. And the US IRS would like to hear from you. Okay, so this is to amplify the way the market is going, this crypto economy market. These are the types of coins, as they call it, tokens, as you want to call it now too. Again, a coin is a type of token. This is what it was in 2017. The Bitcoin price there was, what was it, $2,762. Okay, so don't forget the end of 2017, it went to just about $20,000 on some crypto exchanges. Then in 2018, we came down from, this is I think about February, we came down from that 20,000 in December 2017 to about $11,000. Now we've gone up to 1,515 in the top left. Cryptocurrencies and lots more exchanges coming in. Then February 2019, we went down to $3,848. Then now this is snapshot I took yesterday. All these cryptocurrencies, we went down to 9,700. Well, actually, we went up $9,702. So you can see the point of all this is there's a lot of volatility in this. If you'd bought at $20,000 and then went down to a few $1,000s, $3,000, you would have lost your shirt. If you'd hung on, you wouldn't have lost your shirt that much. So $10,000 or thereabouts. So yesterday it was 9,700 thereabout dollars. Today it's $10,000. So you can see wild fluctuations, a lot of volatility. So there's a lot of naysayers in this, a lot of proponents of this entire ecosystem. JP Morgan CEO said in 2017, when this thing was going all the way up to $20,000, that it's a fraud. It will eventually blow up. Been lots and lots of naysayers, and but again, the money being invested into this ecosystem shows that it has a lot of legs, and is likely to exist for quite a while. So nothing's blown up just yet. So to address this issue of instability, what's been introduced is something called stablecoins, so designed to be less volatile in value than other cryptocurrencies. So it's a stable value, kept stable via complex financial instruments and/or baskets of fiat currencies. But of course, as you know, keeping something stable comes at a cost and some risk. So if you base it on a basket, and there's a lot of debt instruments, especially on in Tether, which are being used to keep this stable. The underlying asset, if that goes a bit haywire, your stability might go a bit haywire too. So you need a lot of complex algorithms to keep this stable. So some are under investigation here in New York. The New York Attorney General has looked at Tether and accused it of all sorts of things, and moving funds offshore and et cetera, et cetera. In fact, there's been some movement on the court case. You can go Google it on this case. Quite a massive case. A lot of the money has been frozen pending the investigation by the New York State Attorney General. So who's also got involved is Facebook with their Libra. So Facebook Libra is a stable coin of sorts. Again, it's been announced and it's not in use or practiced yet. Backed by a range of assets according to the white paper, and you can go to look it up. It's a long white paper to be administered by a foundation with Swiss registration. So Switzerland has got quite an enabling and inviting legal and regulatory environment now for crypto assets and stable coins, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of the crypto exchanges have moved there, into Malta as well. But essentially the rationale around Libra is to use peer-to-peer payments using a Libra wallet. So this is meant to be different to Facebook. So Facebook says, look, we'll catalyze this, we'll kickstart it. Eventually, we're going to hand over control to a foundation. So your currency, so Libra is the currency, it will be stored in a Libra wallet, said to be a global currency, and using the components in the white paper, it could conceptually also be used as a global ID. Some regulators have embraced the concept, very cautious, but inviting of because the concept is said to enhance financial inclusion. So those at the bottom pyramid would suddenly have access, if they have access to internet connection, to payments. But faced headwinds from policymakers around the world, as well as the U.S. president, who tweeted about this. Operationally, as I said, it hasn't got going yet. They need to get operating licenses and figure out AML, anti-money laundering, and CFT issues. So a lot of work still to be done, according to Facebook, before this gets off the ground. There were some very testy exchanges 2 weeks ago in the U.S. Congress between a Facebook executive and U.S. senators who questioned this. So a lot of stuff still to be done before this gets off the ground, but Facebook is a behemoth, so we'll see what power and influence it puts behind this to get it off the ground. So ironically, here's our friend from JP Morgan. JP Morgan is also rolling out the first US bank cryptocurrency for payment business, so its own type of stablecoin. So we moved a far away since 2017, where cryptocurrencies were a fraud. So another form of stablecoin, if you want to call it that, or what's called central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, also known in some quarters as digital fiat currencies or DFCs. And these are stablecoins issued by central banks, and according to the Bank for International Settlements, at least 45 countries as of about a month ago are looking into the possibility of issuing CBDCs. So there's not just one, there's a wholesale and retail type. So yeah, you'll be able to get a CBDC directly from your central bank, much like cash, although these days you get cash from an ATM machine issued by distributed by a bank. So now you'll be able to go directly to the central bank to get your money, as you would possibly also from banks who get it from a wholesale basis from the central bank. So the business models around CBDCs are still evolving, haven't been sorted out yet, and there are no real examples to speak of. Barbados Central Bank's proposing to create a blockchain-based digital dollar in conjunction with service provider BIT. Plan to implement this interoperable digital fiat currency throughout the Caribbean, ostensibly because it has some KYC and traceability components to it, would also obviate against the concept of de-risking, which cuts off their financial systems from institutions from the rest of the world because of potential money laundering issues, because people receiving money in the Caribbean ostensibly aren't identifiable. So these central bank digital currencies, DFCs, because they have some sort of traceability in them by design, are seen as a solution of sorts to de-risking. There are some public policy concerns around CBDC. For example, if because it's not a paper note, it's out in the electronic world. If a government that's issued CBDC, so it's replaced its cash for maybe with a CBDC, if somehow you fall foul of the political class and the government, they could ostensibly switch off your money remotely from anywhere. It could be also used as moral suasion. If you're a business that doesn't pay tax, they could stop a small business or any business from receiving money until you've paid your tax. So these have some public policy concerns. Again, this is an evolving issue. There are some advantages in it. You won't need to convert fiat money to e-money for using mobile money wallets. It's seamless, basically allows the entire system to be, financial ecosystem to be digitized. And for financial inclusion purposes, that's definitely a win. So lots of advantages, but as I said, lots of outstanding issues. So a lot of the standard setting bodies, such as the IMF, have BIS, World Bank, have got their view on it, and they've weighed in on the small little Marshall Islands, and they plan to issue what's called SOV. They're what they call the world's first decentralized money, sovereign, or SOV as it's abbreviated. But the IMF have vehemently objected to it. In fact, the Marshall Islands Parliament passed a law enabling this, and essentially the IMF said, and I'm going to summarize, it won't work. It's a giant Ponzi scheme of sorts and will sink the Marshall Islands economy, sink the island, maybe. So in other words, CBDCs are good for some, maybe not good for others. Okay, so I'm going to talk now about the initial coin offering. So stablecoins, part of this crypto economy. ICO's initial coin offering is part of this crypto economy. It's a controversial new method and largely still unregulated method for startups and others to raise capital. ICO is also called token generation events, initial public coin offerings, crowd sales, and now new term initial exchange offerings if the tokens, because that's what you're issuing, tokens issued by a crypto exchange. So these tokens are issued by people based on kind of a promise, a white paper. It says, I've got a great idea, yeah, buy my tokens. And you give them money, and some work out, but a lot haven't, which has attracted a lot of regulatory scrutiny. So the where it's issued by a non-exchange, it's called a IPO. And again, the terminology varies, so it's stylized. But where the tokens are issued by a crypto exchange, it's called an IEO. So this is tokenization of all those assets. So those music royalties I spoke about, those you can trade as tokens. Okay, so just a stylized representation of the differences between a legacy initial public offering and an IEO, ICO. You'll see at the top there, those are all your actors in the IPO, and what you've got effectively is disintermediation in the crypto economy world of a lot of those actors. So on the left, and we'll just the one at the top you all know pretty well, but let's just talk about the one at the bottom, initial exchange offering. It can be much the same as an ICO. So the founders of the company wanting to issue these tokens creates this concept, and the trading is done essentially by this crypto exchange, crypto asset exchange, whatever you want to call it. They do the clearing, they do the settlement, they do the escrow, they do the broker dealing, as it's called here in the US, and custodianship. Now, importantly, and we'll touch on this for security purposes, if you want to trade your tokens, you need to essentially hand over those private keys we spoke about earlier to the exchange, so that your exchange has got a liquid representation of your token. So it's easily tradable. You don't need to send it to them. You already sent it. But the custody component is that they have custody not of some physical asset or share certificate. They just have your keys. So that concept of custody is an open regulatory issue. What does custody mean now? Do they have access to what? Is a private key the equivalent of having access to a share certificate? So those are open regulatory issues, and we'll talk about that in a second. So these are we'll go into the legal and regulatory issues. So Bitcoin regulations versus blockchain regulation, as we've seen, they're two different things because one's technology and one's a crypto asset, not the same risks. They also have tax, AML, and custodial issues that we just spoke about, components to them. And this is a brief snapshot of the issues. I'm busy on a paper on this, so you look out for a paper which explains a lot of this. On the left-hand side are all your technologies, your assets, and on the right-hand side are the legal and regulatory impact. Everything from law of evidence down to anti-money laundering, data privacy, intellectual property rights, cybersecurity laws, payments law, banking law, tons of them. This can keep the lawyers very busy for many, many, many years. And as I said, this is evolving. So new issues evolve with new terms, with new technologies. It's being sorted out, people getting a sense of what to do, because this is right new, but the regulators are still trying to figure out. So some of the regulators in the DLT world are central banks, financial services for licensing, security regulators, tax for, spoke about IRS and capital gains, financial intelligence units, or anti-money laundering units as they're also known, telecommunication regulators for data protection purposes and transport of data, and data protection regulators for data privacy. So lots of regulators involved in this, and their thought has evolved. They've gone from observe, react, regulate to actually embracing. So they're using blockchain for themselves, and as we spoke about, the CBDCs are in their vision too. So we've gone from Bitcoin now to crypto assets and CBDCs. So you can see even regulators who have oversight over all of this have evolved and are no longer just reacting, and this is the reacting. But so China has banned this on cryptocurrency. Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, Kenya, Belgium, UK has frozen cryptocurrency account users. India is proposing, I think I saw one proposal, 10 years in jail if you trade cryptocurrencies, although Reserve Bank of India is embracing blockchain technology. So it's all over the show. This is the legal status, and this is from Wikipedia of Bitcoin worldwide. The green is permissive. China is very anti some cryptocurrencies. So it's all over the show. So this is the embracing part, again, where they've embraced CBDCs and use of DLTs. British government grants millions of blockchain technology research. Reserve Bank of India quietly opens cryptocurrency research institute. Dubai government, etc., etc. China anti Bitcoins completes digital currency trial on blockchain. South African Reserve Bank just went through some trials too. So who's weighed in, and is very important, is the Financial Action Task Force, which is a global standard-setting body on anti-money laundering. National AML regulators usually follow its lead. So whatever FATF says is usually implemented in some form at a national level by the Anti-Money Laundering Unit, or FIU. Importantly, FATF issued crypto guidance last month at its plenary in Florida. In short, any trading of crypto assets requires identification of the party. So this is not necessarily in effect, this guidance in just yet in national rules, but it's trickling down. The FATF guidance is an adaptation of what's called the travel rule, so essentially you need to follow the money. But as we've seen from the reaction to the FATF guidance, many crypto exchanges will find it very difficult to comply because they really haven't gone about identifying their users. Some people have actually gone to jail because of that. In fact, New York is home to the very first crypto convict. Actually, he's out of jail now. Yeah, because of non-identification of users. So we've also built some crypto asset regulatory frameworks to encapsulate this crypto economy and all its moving parts. It gives legal recognition to various token classes, allows legal trading of crypto assets. Malta, Switzerland, we spoke about, that's where Libra is going to be registered now. Australia. Interestingly, with Australia, they've said that the miners are liable for something that might be illegal, which is a kind of a world first. The CFTC in the US intimated that, but new rules issued by ASIC in Australia about 2-3 months ago said, and I've never seen this before, miners, those are anonymous people adding blockchains, blocks to the blockchain as nodes, will be liable if there's any illegality. Just to say also, if I haven't already, that the blocks, the data on the blocks are just data. It's not verified data. So it might be complete nonsense. It's unverified. Some of the inputs through oracles, what are called oracles, are external offline inputs. The data might be nonsense, but it's put on the blockchain. The nodes don't say whether or not the data is right or right, just whether or not it fits within the paradigm of adding data to the blockchain. So there's Bahrain, and some of the US states have issued regulations. I developed a DFS at the DFSO model crypto asset regulatory framework. You can go to our website, dfsobservatory.com, and download it. This is what it looks like. It's really got a developing world focus, because that's our focus, on the way all of these could be regulated in a very standardized form. So all your usual suspects of utility tokens, ICO, security token offerings, cryptocurrencies, stablecoins are all and DFCs are all within this framework, and even the crypto exchanges. So U.S. regulators, Securities and Exchange Commission, IRS, etc. And here's an interesting one. The SEC held what's called Operation Crypto Sweep last year on ICOs, essentially clamping down on what they said were fraudulent ICOs. And here's one, and this is from their PowerPoint. You can see this is a snapshot they gave of some a website for, proposing an ICO, and you can see these client testimonials, and you can see they're all fake. So that chap, the red arrow, Mark Robert in the UK, who of course is Prince Charles, who's got absolutely nothing to do with this worldwide coin. Then there's Kate Jennifer, who of course is Jennifer Aniston, which has got nothing to do with this ICO, and Minit An of Russia, who is actually the ex-Finnish Prime Minister. Nothing to do with any of this. These are fake testimonials. These were all shut down by the US SEC along with Canadian and other regulators. So very briefly, some security issues in DLTs. I alluded to this layer 1 issue versus layer 2. Layer 2 is less secure than layer 1, it said, because of this off-chain component. Crypto exchanges have been hacked. The user wallets have been hacked. So remember I spoke about you hand over your private key credentials to the crypto exchanges. The crypto exchanges, unfortunately, have not kept them secure, so they've been hacked, and people run off with people's tokens, and literally hundreds of millions of dollars has been lost. You can Google it. There's still ongoing court cases and huge amounts of data lost. In fact, the interesting one was from Canada, where about 3-4 months ago, where the owner of the exchange mysteriously died in India, and Quadri, I believe it was called, and he was the only person that had access to the exchange through his God key. And everybody essentially lost their money. There's some thought that it actually wasn't, that it was more suspicious fraud than anything else, but I think there's an open investigation. There are also some non-DLT threats ported to DLTs, for example, denial of services. The service attacks via bots cost gas for Ethereum to fix it. You've got to pay money to fix it after denial of service, and attacks of smart contracts. So in all, I'm going to be closing off soon. This speaks to what Vitalik Buterin, inventor of Ethereum, called the DLT trilemma, or the blockchain trilemma, where you've got security, governance, and scalability. So if you want to improve any of those, you've got to sacrifice one. That's a trilemma. I've created also a crypto asset trilemma, which you can read about in the forthcoming paper. But essentially, this encapsulates the problem. Right now, the state of the art is that you can't have all three of these: security, governance, and scalability, according to him. So I hope you've learned a few ideas and concepts today. Unlike this chap, who's kind of a neophyte on blockchain. So thankfully, we've during the course of the webinar, we've got quite a few questions, and I want to thank you very much for them. So let's see. Priya from Jakarta in Indonesia asks, in the long term, what types of products and services you perceive will survive as a practical use of blockchain technology? Well, there's a lot, Priya, thanks for the question. There's a lot already up and running, remittances, trade finance, and digital identity are all systems are being developed and in use. As I said, there are lots and lots of use cases you can look up. But for now, I'll say that a lot of this is all being done at the enterprise level. In other words, a non-customer facing level, because a lot of people don't have the wherewithal on their phones or the like to essentially do a lot of the complex stuff that I've spoken about. So a lot of the companies are embracing blockchain technology for all sorts of record keeping uses and the like, and also, as we've seen, the CBDCs. So until the stablecoin evolves, there's a lot of volatility in the cryptocurrency space. So as a means of payment, a lot of the cryptocurrencies aren't practically useful just now for basically buying a McBurger. There are some online companies which do accept Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, not many though. Is growing. But the point is, and I think it's quite clear to everybody, for mainstream use, cryptocurrencies are not in mainstream use in the broader non-crypto economy. Okay. So Edwin from Kenya asks, how reasonable is it to expect that blockchain-based technology or cryptocurrency can be adopted in the relatively near future in the developing world context? Thank you for that question, Edwin. So our focus, of course, here at the DFSO at CITI is on the developing world, and we've looked at where this is evolving. It's certainly being used in the identity space for voting. In a lot of countries, the property registries are non-existent or very suspect. Somebody can essentially change the ownership components of a property or some land. So putting it on the blockchain makes it tamper evident, and a lot of countries are doing that. The remittance space, especially Ripple, for low liquidity currency pairing has got a lot of traction. It allows currencies which have been de-risked or where their currency is not traded to any great degree to essentially gain more liquidity, so they've become more part of the global financial ecosystem. Final quick question as we close off. Rajiv from India asks, what are the reasons which motivate different approaches that countries have been taking towards regulating or restricting the use of cryptocurrency? Rajiv, that's an excellent question. Thank you so much. We did cover that a little bit in the legal and regulatory section, but essentially these are public policy concerns and speaks to whether or not the particular regulators see these cryptocurrencies as having systemic or otherwise effect on the economy. So in some cases, they're seen as bypassing the control of the central bank in currency movements. And in fact, some countries have said you can't use your credit card or mortgage to finance cryptocurrency trading, because frankly that exposes a lot of people to that volatility and risk. So quite frankly, it's all over the show. Some countries, as we saw, we went from the react to embrace paradigm, have evolved on their thinking. So while a lot of countries are essentially not going to budge from banning cryptocurrencies, other countries say yes, you can use them within a crypto asset framework, which I showed you. So that brings us to the top of the hour and to the end of the webinar. And I want to thank you all. We've had a really quite a record-breaking attendance from around the world. Thank you for sending in the request for the primary for the webinar. Thank you for sending in all your questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of them. We've had a lot of questions, but if you want to send questions to info@dfsobservatory.com, I'm very happy to answer your questions offline and continue the discussion. Again, take a look at dfsobservatory.com for all our publications, and stay tuned for announcements on our upcoming webinars and roundtables. So wherever you are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to you from New York City and Columbia University, DFSO at CITI. Bye-bye.